Representative Eskamani, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. So I think I just want to start with telling the story of how I got registered to vote, because I think we all remember that process. And sometimes it was your parent that helped you fill that form and make sure you got your driver's license, that you also pre-registered to vote. Maybe you did it in a different state, and when you came to Florida, it was just one of those automatic things you did at the DMV. In my case, it was my summer school teacher back in 2007 at University High School, go Cougars, where he actually was also the AP government teacher at the time, but he was teaching some of those summer classes you take in order to graduate. And he made sure that all the students there were pre-registered to vote, myself included. And so by the time I turned 18, I was ready to vote. I registered NPA, in fact. My parents were Democrats, so I wanted to figure out for myself who I wanted to be and what my values were. And it wasn't until 2010 at the University of Central Florida where I registered to vote a Democrat. And it was mainly because the only two groups tabling that hot summer at UCF was the Iranian Student Organization, which I was a part of, and the College Dems. And I was collecting human rights petitions, and they were doing voter reg. And I just felt such an alliance with these young leaders that were talking about issues that mattered to me. And I built so many friendships from that, but of course also got registered to vote as a Democrat. And the rest is kind of history. That same year, this legislative body passed a bill to make it harder to register people to vote. In fact, that legislation created the third-party voter reg system we have today. I remember it very clearly because I was one of those students who was registering her classmates to vote. And when that legislation passed back in 2011, it upended the entire structure of voter registration, where organizations just stopped doing voter reg. And it wasn't until a lawsuit was filed and then a court decided that the laws the legislature placed were restrictive, that some of those requirements were pulled back, including back then, there was a 48-hour deadline to turn in voter registration forms, which was absolutely absurd. And honestly, I'm sad. I'm sad to be in this chamber now facing a bill that it just reminds me of what took place a decade ago. And by the way, it was 2011, right before the 2012 election cycle. And this very much is like deja vu. We're back at it again, making it more difficult to register people to vote under false pretenses. Now, I want to say there are many fines, fees, penalties, and requirements for third-party voter reg organizations. What we are doing with this bill is unnecessary. Requiring that 3 PVROs have to expire after every election cycle. Administrative burden, bureaucratic in nature, unnecessary. Setting these restrictions on who can volunteer for your organization, discriminatory in nature, and again, unnecessary. I think it's really frustrating in a state that believes in second chances, in a state that is so diverse, that has so many immigrant communities, that we don't think our fellow Floridians are able or trustworthy to hold a clipboard with forms and help support their fellow Floridian and getting registered to vote, especially when the bill has penalties in place if anyone copies that information. It's one thing to have those type of penalties, which I totally get, but it's something else when you're drawing these discriminatory factors and saying that some people can be trusted to hold a clipboard. And it's purely designed to intimidate third-party voter reg organizations, many who are scrappy, many who have small budgets, many who are volunteer-driven. You're basically going to create an environment where they're going to have to do background checks, where they're going to have to ask pointed questions to volunteers on their immigration status. I mean, that's wild, members. It's so wild and unnecessary. And as a reminder, third-party voter reg organizations, they do what government doesn't do, what government won't do. They go into churches, they go into college campuses, they go into community events, farmers markets, they meet folks belly to belly and encourage them and get them activated to register to vote. Government doesn't do that. And in a state that, really preaches small government, you would think supporting through PVROs that decentralization with safety metrics in mind and accountability in mind would be our approach. But this is clearly designed to deter specifically Black and brown volunteers from being able to participate in the process, because we all know that when it comes to incarceration rates, and especially when it comes to targeting those who don't have, those who aren't U.S. citizens, that it's directly impacting a very select group of people over others. And I also, of course, want to elevate this resign-to-run repeal. I mean, LOL, members. Like, I thought there were checks and balances in government. I thought we were in a structure where we hold, other branches accountable, not bend over backwards to do as we're told by one branch of government. And the fact that it's specifically for president or vice president, I think we all know the elephant in the room, what that is for, and that is for Governor DeSantis in his path to run for president. The rest of us don't have that type of benefit. And we've had multiple special elections, past years, because many of our colleagues ran for Congress and those seats were empty despite them not winning their races. I mean, if you're going to do it, you should really consider at least evening the playing field for others, not selectively carving it out for one man. Members, I don't wait for one man. I'm not going to change the law for one man. And so with that said, I really encourage everyone to vote down on this bill. Please think about the organizations who are directly impacted. Think about our fundamental American values, the importance of democracy and civic engagement, and let's vote down this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.